Welcome back to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Return Policy. This happened 20 years ago when I worked at Best Buy. At the time, HD DVD and Blu-ray started duking it out. As a customer assistant supervisor, I would occasionally help cover other supervisors or some manager duties. During our lunch break, a customer came in and wanted to return an open DVD. Policy at the time was that we are unable to return those, as piracy was a thing back then that people somewhat cared about. I let the customer know that I was unable to return the DVD, but I could exchange it for the same item if it was defective or he was having an issue with it. The customer said he'd like to do that and got a sort of a grin on his face. When I came back with the replacement movie, I took the plastic wrapper off in front of him, as the grin slid off his face and his mouth went agape. Handing him the DVD, I wished him luck that it worked better than his last copy. The customer retorted something that slips my mind, then tossed the open DVD back at me and walked away. I still feel a small sense of satisfaction knowing the customer thought he would then be able to return the replacement new DVD. I just made sure that he got an exact replacement. How was I to know that this wouldn't be good enough? The next story is called Fired for It. I used to work at Sonic as a car hop. I usually worked from 4 or 5 to close. One day I was cleaning up all the drinks the day shift left around and I found a can of Monster. I grabbed it and walked around and asked everybody who was working. The manager, Robert, like normal, was talking to his girlfriend on the phone. When I asked if it was his, he looked right at me, shook his head and turned away without saying anything. After I finished asking everybody else, I dumped it out and threw it away. 45 minutes later, he comes up front and went to throw away his trash and sees it in the trash. He was livid. He started screaming, grabbed it out of the trash and started shoving it in people's faces, asking if they threw it away. I told him they didn't. I did. He cornered me against the wall and screamed in my face that I was going to leave and go buy him a new one. 2 things. The Monster was probably half full, if that, and I hate being yelled at. And I asked him. We got into this huge fight about it, him demanding I replace it, me telling him to screw off. This went on for 2 hours. It was slow because it was winter, so he sent everybody else home. He was cooking. Finally, he told me I was either going to go buy a new one or I was going to go home. It was 7 at this point. We closed at midnight. I grabbed my stuff and went and clocked out. He said if I didn't go get him a new drink, I was fired. I said okay. Not even 5 minutes after I left, the general manager called me, asking why I left, so I told him what happened. He said the other manager can't fire me, as only the general manager can, and asked me to go back and finish the shift. I told him that I couldn't do that with Robert yelling in my face like that and that I'd go back tomorrow. So Robert was screwed the rest of the night. Nobody else, not even the GM, would come in. He had to cook and run orders for 5 hours by himself. Set a lot of customers off. And when I went in the next night, he asked why I was back since he fired me, and it was a joy to tell him he couldn't do that. He held a grudge for 3 whole months. The third story is called Cops Want Permission. I was in this hotel lobby sitting there, waiting to go to a restaurant. All of a sudden 2 cops show up and ask me for ID, then tell me I have to leave as a lady had complained that she didn't feel comfortable with me there. It was a total Karen call. One cop was kind of a jerk too. He tells me I gotta leave until they let me back. They stare at me as I walk to my car. Not sure what it was. I was wearing a political slogan shirt, but nothing vulgar. I called the hotel later and asked to speak with a manager, who then explains that some guest had called and she was kinda Karen, so they wanted to make her happy. The manager said I'm welcome to come back to the property. I was reluctant to give them business again, but I could not let the cops or the Karen win. I go back to the hotel and sit at the restaurant. I call the police department and inform them I got permission to return. The dispatcher is aggravated and said he is required to send an officer to check. The same cop who was there earlier returns and gives me an evil look. He goes to the front desk and speaks to the manager, who waves me to the front. The cop pulls out a form that he has to fill out, and the manager reviews it and signs it. It was a trespass removal form. Both seem very annoyed to have to go through the process, but it's the law. The cop storms out aggravated, as I smile and say enjoy the day. The manager of the restaurant gives me a sort of smile and says I didn't have to call the cops back, as it was just extra paperwork, but I wanted to comply with the policies. I think I may have seen a Karen walk out, giving me a mean look as I was in the restaurant. I enjoyed the rest of my meal. The next story is called Coffee Karen. My daughter works as a casual at a kids' recreation center and only just started behind the kiosk counter. Enter our mom Karen, who orders a coffee, $4.40, and wants to pay by card. Daughter apologizes and explains that the minimum for card payment is $5, and she can either pay by cash or can buy something extra to take it up to $5. Karen gets angry and demanding, says this has never happened before, and insists she's paid by card 100 times before. Eventually, Karen demands to see the manager. Enter the manager, who takes over the transaction and copes the wrath of Karen. The manager swipes the card and hands over the freshly brewed coffee. Karen, having won, walks off with a grin and a snarky comment of, "You ought to train your staff better." Daughter quietly turns to her manager and inquires if it's okay to charge less than $5 to the card. Nah, I charged her $5 for her coffee. She does it all the time, but I just overcharged her every time, but she thinks she's won. The last story is called Karen Knows Best. In the 80s, I lost everything I could. As a last effort, I saved up some money to move to a different state so that I could start fresh. I chose Montana to be my new home. Because I didn't have a college degree, I knew I could only make a living with my hands and not my head. After a bit of looking around, I found work on a ranch. The owner of the ranch, let's call him Jack, took me under his wing. He taught me how to ride a horse, how to herd, how to do cutting, roping, and many other useful skills on a ranch. My goal was to have enough money for a deposit, so I could buy a house or at least some land. After about 3 years, I had the money, but I loved the ranch and the folks so much that I chose to stay longer. In the spring of '88, I finally made the decision to quit. I was fully honest with Jack about what my intentions were. I told him that I wanted to buy some land to have a ranch of my own and potentially get married and start a family. Being the absolute champ, Jack offered me some contacts of people who were selling land. After some time, I chose a piece of land near Jack's ranch. I got a loan, bought the land, and in the summer I started building my house. By winter, the house was done, and it was planned that in the spring I'll build a barn and some fences, corrals among others. In the spring it was back to work, and before summer started I had nothing to do. I had a lot of time on my hands while I was waiting for all the paperwork to be done. And I wasn't going to spend 2 weeks sitting on my porch doing nothing when Jack promised me that if I would ever need it, he would give me a job. Now, I didn't need a job because of money, but I just didn't have anything to do. So I went to my good old friend Jack if he needed some help. He said that he could use me to guide people on the tours he was offering. His ranch is not only in the cattle business. He also offers tours of the pristine nature on his property. I happily accepted the job, despite not liking people. But still, it was better than just sitting on my front porch and doing nothing. The first few days went without a problem. But then a wild Karen appeared to brighten up the day. I was just returning from a tour when I saw this Karen in the middle of the field yelling at this girl, who was also a guide. I didn't know the girl, but in my books, whoever makes a girl cry is a jerk. I came over to them, and in the most passive-aggressive voice I can, I say, "Good day, what seems to be the problem?" Karen's wrath was now aimed at me, and she yelled back, "This idiot has no respect for the desires of the customer. Give me a manager, now." Now, I didn't expect such strong wording, but I kept my cool despite my hot-headedness, and I came up to the girl, who's now sobbing because this Karen was mouthing off to her pretty good. I say to her, "Leave her to me, I'll take care of her. You go take a break and tell Jack that I'll be with this piece of work." She gives me a grateful smile and a nod and writes away. I go to Karen and I say to her, "Ma'am, I can't get you the manager as he's busy right now, but if you want, I can be your guide in her stead for the remainder of the tour." She replies very politely by saying, "Sure, I think even the trees will be better than that idiot." Every part of my hot-headed self wants me to pretty much bury this woman right then and there, but I keep my cool, and we head off on the tour. And within the first minute, what a piece of work she truly is. She behaves like she knows best, and everyone is lesser than her, and everything should be given to her. When we are about to turn around and go back, I give her a choice. We could either go the official route, or we could return by the unofficial route, which is shorter, but there were bear sightings reported in the past few days. I tell her that the unofficial route is quite dangerous, but just as I wanted her to do so, she vehemently objects because she is the wisest person alive and knows the best. Great, my trap had worked. After about 5 miles on this unofficial route, she starts screaming and turns so pale that she is even more white than paper. In the distance, there is a grizzly. I knew about the danger I dragged both of us into, but in the end, it was technically her choice to go that route. I tell her to make herself as big and loud as she can. I follow suit, but the bear keeps getting closer. It keeps growling at us. With every growl, Karen was getting even more pale. After it gets way too dangerous, I shoot a round out of my rifle, and the bear gets scared and runs away into the woods. The entire ride back, she keeps yelling at me that I put her intentionally in so much danger. And yes, I'll admit, it was quite reckless taking a visitor into a part of the woods where there were bear sightings reported. But technically, she made the decision to go that route. I stay silent the entire ride, because I can't keep a straight face. I was laughing manically in my head, and I knew that if I looked at her, I would start laughing out loud. When we returned, she was shaking violently and was pale as ever. After I tied up her horse, she demanded that I get her the manager, and I gladly point her to the little building in the distance, and she storms off. She starts yelling at Jack, and I can see that Jack is trying his hardest not to break out laughing. I could hear that she was demanding that I be fired, but the neat part was, I wasn't an employee of Jack's. I was doing it as a favor for a friend, and thus I couldn't be fired. After Karen's tirade ends, Jack comes to me laughing like a kid, and he asks me, "How did you even come up with that?" I also start giggling and answer, "Well, she made the girl cry, so I wanted to give her special treatment." I heard of the bear sightings, and it worked out well in my favor. He then asked me not to do that again, as it was reckless, and I agree, and I tell Jack, I don't plan on doing it again, but I had a plan if the bear mauled her. My defense would be that I gave her the choice to go on a safer path, but because she was apparently of higher intellect than me, I simply agreed. Jack gives me a smile and heads off. Years later, I ended up meeting that girl's guide again. Her name was Abby. Nowadays, my kids call her Mom. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.